Good morning to everyone at today's public hearing of the Prosecutor Vetting Commission. I'm Christopher Lehman, the chairperson of the commission. I declare the session to be open. I will be or am joining this hearing remotely. The other 5 members are present in person. Our commission is established under Law 252 on the external evaluation of judges and prosecutors. Article 22, paragraph 13 of that law provides that this commission will assess candidates for the Superior Council of Prosecutors Discipline and Ethics Board according to the procedure and criteria regulated by Law Number 26, 2022, on measures related to the selection of candidates for the position of members in the self-administration bodies of the prosecutors. This hearing is also being conducted under the commission's rules of procedures for evaluations under Law 26 of 2022. The subject of today's hearing is Vladislav Gutan, a candidate for the Superior Council of Prosecutors Discipline and Ethics Board. And Mr. Gutan, welcome and good morning. I'm joined by my colleagues on the commission, and from Mr. Gutan's left, these are Nadezhda Hryptievsky, I believe, I don't have a camera, so I believe it would be Ermontis Mikalonis, Virginia Mararo, Saskia DeVries, and Cornel Lebedinsky, and I apologize if I've gotten those out of order. The commission is also assisted by members of its secretariat. This hearing is open to the public and members of the media. The hearing will be conducted with interpretation in Romanian and English. To allow for accurate interpretation, I would ask everyone to please speak slowly and clearly. The proceedings are being recorded. The recordings of the commission's public hearings will be available online on the commission's website within 3 days after the hearing. Mr. Gutan, during the hearing, 1 or more members of the commission will ask questions to you. Please answer them truthfully and completely. Your explanations are important to the commission in verifying your financial and ethical integrity. In formulating our questions, we will take into account your privacy and, where required and possible, the privacy of your family members and close persons. So we will leave out unnecessary details relating to ID numbers, bank account numbers, specific addresses for real estate, and the like. And for your protection and privacy, we would suggest that you do the same in your answers. At the end of the hearing, you'll be given a brief opportunity to make a closing statement. Excuse me. I will start by reviewing the evaluation process for Vladislav Gutan. The commission initiated its evaluation on the 22nd of December, 2023, by notifying the candidate by email and asking him to complete and return the ethics questionnaire and a financial declaration form. Mr. Gutan returned the completed questionnaire and the declarations as required by 29 December 2023. As part of evaluating the subject's ethical and financial integrity, the commission also obtained information from many other sources, such as the National Integrity Authority, the State Fiscal Service, the General Inspectorate of the Border Police, other public institutions, financial institutions, and open sources. The commission assesses the information it obtains from these sources for relevance and reliability. The commission also sent the candidate 3 rounds of questions on the 14th of June, 2024, the 22nd of July, 2024, and the 11th of September, 2024, to which you responded. On the 1st of October, 2024, the commission invited you to attend today's hearing. At that time, we notified you of the specific topics to be addressed at the hearing. Mr. Gutan, thank you again for appearing today. I'll begin with a few questions for you, and I would ask you to respond to these and to all questions in a complete and truthful manner. First, I just want to ask whether you wish to make any additions or corrections to the answers that you have previously provided to the commission in our request for information.
No, nothing to add or correct right now.
Thank you. And I also want to confirm the answers that you provided in the 5-year declaration and the ethics questionnaire that were returned on the 29th of December, 2023, Are those still accurate as of today?
Yes, Chairperson, they are still correct and accurate.
Thank you. And at this time, I will give the floor to my colleague Saskia de Vries, who will be following up with some additional questioning.
Thank you. Hello again. We just met in the hall. Ms. Gutan, I understand that you had a look at the file this morning. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I was interested in certain data.
Yeah, that may make it perhaps easier to solve some issues. The first one that I want to start with is a currency exchange of 5,000 euros in 2009. And we have asked you questions about this in the written rounds. And basically you say, I don't know anything about it. I've never purchased currency in this amount or greater. And you think there might be a mixed identities. I have here a copy of this, on this document, on this currency exchange. Did you see it in your file? Okay. Now,
Yes, I did see it.
okay, now, so I'm asking you again, what can you tell me about this currency exchange?
Thank you for your question. I can tell you that I have never exchanged currency at the Banca Comercială Română. I can't explain how they used my data. In 2009, when the transaction happened, and that day and month, that was a Tuesday. Looking at the time, I saw it was working time. I was working at the office on 73 Ștefan cel Mare Boulevard, while Banca Comercială Română was, and this, well, not anymore, but it had a very poor presence on the market of Moldova. From what I remember, it had only one office on Tricolorului Street, which is, like, I don't know, 3, even more, maybe even 5 blocks away. So if I had the need to exchange an amount on the way to Banca Comercială Română, I would have encountered offices and branch offices of all banks that exist in Moldova and all possible currency exchange offices, including a currency exchange office that is a reference one up to date. It is well known that for amounts of up to $5,000 at that time, not banks and not currency exchange offices, they were not asking for identity documents. So if I were a citizen that wants to exchange a certain amount of money, I don't see the reason to walk such a distance to go to a bank that usually has a less favorable exchange rate compared to other exchange offices in the city. Why would I change there an amount that automatically registers me in the payment system? I state, certainly I have not carried out any transaction of this kind with Banca Comercială Română.
Okay. Can you confirm that it's your name on the form and the number of the ID card is also yours?
Yes, I confirm. But if I may, I would like to add here. This is year 2009, when I did not make any big purchase, no cars, no vacations, no real estate, nothing. So I keep supporting my own position. I did not make that currency exchange.
And from what I understand, you think that someone used your identity information?
That would be the only explanation.
Thank you. Then I'll move on to the next one, and that's a deposit of 1,900 euros in a bank account on your name in 2015. Did you have a look at the document which relates to this?
Da.
Yes.
And what is your position? Because before you said that you didn't know anything about it.
Am spus pentru că este
I said that because it was a transaction of putting money into an account in 2015, and it's something natural not to remember now. Having looked into the statement, I would like to clarify. When I received the question round from the Commission, I checked
situația contului
the account and the date mentioned in the Commission's question. I checked that in my bank, that is, it generated a report that I attached, provided to the Commission with my answers, and it showed that in that period of time I did not have any transaction on that account. I relied on what the applications had. And until yesterday, I think, honestly, I checked again for a longer period of time, and I saw that for 2015 it shows me 0 transactions for year 2015. I went to the bank, and the clerk there told me that for 2015 the system does not generate, not even they could. I had to make a written request in order to receive by email the bank statement. Now, having checked the bank statement, that was a euro account opened in 2013. Between 2013 and 2015, there was no transaction in the account. In 2015, with the support of the Council of Europe, a study visit was organized to Lisbon, Portugal. The date of the study visit was postponed for certain reasons that the organizers invoked. So, according to the preliminary information, the per diems were to be paid after coming back from that business trip, from that study visit. So on 21st, in that period of time, I supplemented my account with the amount that I could afford at that time to have that money just to feel safe when I'm on a business trip outside Moldova. And looking at the bank statement, that amount was deposited, and then some transactions were only made starting the day when I went on the business trip. So those were small transactions, like small expenses at the airport, buying water or some other services. Also in the bank statement, we see it was supplemented with 1,900 euros, but in the end of December, there was still 1,250 euros. So the entire business trip and all the related expenses, including like small gifts and souvenirs, cost me 400-something euros, I think. This is my answer.
Thank you for that, and this is what the hearings are for, to clear this up. So thank you for your answers. I'm going to move to the purchase and the sale of a car, a Toyota Camry. Yeah? Oh.
Just a moment. Eu vreau să anunț colegii
I would like colleagues to announce if you have questions to the candidate while we discuss issue 1 and 2 and further ones that were included in the invitation for the candidates, so that we could ask them immediately after the issues. Mr. Lebedinsky, do you have a question? I'm sorry, we do not hear anything.
Sorry.
Once more, I will repeat it for interpretation. In the context of the answer you provided today, that you have never made a currency exchange transaction at Banca Comercială Română. I have a question. But some other relationships, deposits, loans, transfers, remittances, some other relationship, did you have anything with that bank?
Nu am fost niciodată client la
I have
BCR
never been a client of BCR,
Moldova.
Moldova.
Nu am avut niciodată
I have never had an account opened with them. I have never gotten any loan. I did
Nu am
not.
achitat în general nici o plată, nici o
I have never made any payment at BCR because they really had very poor presence, only one office.
Deci
So,
băncile la care
the banks that I
ca client
was a client of at that time was Moldinkom Bank
și cel mai mult
and most of all MAIB.
alte bănci.
That's it. No other banks.
Vă mulțumesc pentru răspunsul dumneavoastră.
Thank you for your answer.
Și așa o întrebare.
And another question. How you, as a prosecutor, could explain that your data
Apărut în cadrul acestui
happened to be at that bank?
spuneți că n-ați.
You say you were not there.
Eu nu pot să-mi găsesc
I cannot find a plausible explanation because I don't see the rationale. The amount was not that big. I mean, that amount was at a threshold.
un prag minim stabilit
That was a minimum threshold set by the state, by the FIU,
prin care,
FIU, sorry,
se cere identificarea
starting from which
efectuează tranzacția.
an identification of a person making the transaction was necessary. I really can't find an explanation. I did not know about it. I have never been contacted by FIU to provide any explanation. So the first time I heard about this is when I received the question round. Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you. We'll move to the car, the Toyota Camry. And you have declared that you purchased a car which was built in 2018, in July 2020 for 250,000 lei, and that you sold it in 2023 for 25,000 lei. And I saying that this is a price difference of 175,000 lei for a car, which was at the time of the sale 3 years older. I'll come back to this. In the rounds of questions you have explained that the car was purchased at a specialized auction for second-hand cars, including some slightly damaged cars from Canada, and this was done by your friend, and I will call him IR, who, in addition to other economic activities, also imports cars from the USA and Canada for personal and of commercial purposes. Is that correct?
Da, este adevărat.
That's true.
Why did you choose to purchase this car and at an auction instead of going to a dealer?
Da, mulțumesc pentru întrebare.
Thank you for your question.
Deci, ca să dau răspuns reișând din
To answer based on the reverse
este mai econom.
order of your question, because, well, it was cheaper and there is a substantial difference, and I will make a calculation
Ca să înțelegeți
for you to understand that actually that was the real price of the car. The car was purchased on August 27th, 2019. I can even tell you it's a auction Copart Canada specialized in selling cars that had certain, well, smaller or bigger damage. The purchase price was 11,800 Canadian dollars. That was equivalent, give or take, 7,900 euros or 158,000 Moldovan lei. To that price, we add the clearance, customs clearance, which was at half price for hybrid cars, so that would mean 24,000 lei, and the road taxes of fees were around 10,000 lei. So the price of a car by the time it got into Moldova was 192,000 lei, 750 to be precise. I purchased the car. It was here. I saw it. I saw pictures. I saw it in reality.
Deci la acești 192
To this 192,000 lei, 35,000 lei was added like cost of repair and improvement
habitatului, că
of the interior of a car,
schimbate
because
husele la scaune sau
the cases of the benches were replaced with levers. So
sunt relații de prietenie.
since I have, well, there are friendships and things, but I
Eu am achitat un
paid an extra of around 20,000 lei, that was around 1,000 euros, because the price was still much better than the market price for new cars or cars that were generally placed on the market. So the total price of a car in the Republic of Moldova was 247,750 lei, with the 20,000 lei that I added as a bonus additionally for my friend who brought the car. So it is rounded to 250,000 lei. This is the cost that it had. On the date when I sold the car, 3 years later, I sold it for the market price at that time.
care a fost motivul
And the reason why I sold it is because we were thinking to invest in real estate and we had to sell it,
vânzare.
to put it up for sale.
Do you have documents on the numbers that you just gave?
Am cu mine,
With me here,
nu știu dacă s-a mai păstrat screenshot-ul
I think I have a screenshot with the purchase price of the car and the condition it was in. I'm not sure it's right here.
You can also provide it after
Puteți să ne oferiți asta și după audiere.
Maybe that's better. Then
Poate ar fi așa mai bine, pentru că atunci o să putem să
eu
studiem.
am să anexez că restul s-au făcut
I will attach, because repair works were paid in cash. I don't have receipts.
pot să o anexez.
But I can attach, this is it, I can attach it after the hearing.
Thank you. Now, can you tell us something about your relationship with IR?
Da, este o relație de
Yes, this is a friendship relationship,
mulți ani de prietenie, cu toate că el este
long-lasting friendship, even though he's a bit younger than I am. But he had the courage many years ago to give up
activitatea în
on
organele de drept
working in law enforcement and focus on economic activities as a private individual,
și reușește cu succes
which he is successfully doing, and
activități în Turcia și în Spania.
has various activities in Turkey and Spain and here.
Did you ask him to buy the car in Canada for you?
Nu, automobilul
No.
am aflat despre
I found out about the car when I was talking to him. Like, I was asking him,
interesant.
what are you bringing? What's interesting? What's new? And he told me about it. I saw the pictures. I waited for it to be brought to the Republic of Moldova. I saw it in reality, what was its condition. The car was relatively new,
10.000 km la bord.
12,000 kilometers mileage.
O afacere bună, dacă
Good business, good deal, honestly.
So, if I understand correctly, he bought the car at the auction. He brought the car to Moldova, and that was the first time that you saw the car.
da.
Yes, correct.
And then you decided.
Cum am văzut, mă scuzați, vă rog.
Sorry.
Am văzut pozele
I saw pictures on a phone, give or take, but in reality, I saw it for the first time in Moldova.
And then you decided that you wanted to buy it? Or had you decided before?
Haideți să spunem așa,
Well, let's put it like this.
a fost dacă el într-o stare cât de cât ok sau nu știu.
It was said like, if the condition is more or less okay, if it's convinced, then I will ask him to sell that car to me, because that car was being brought into the country to be sold, not for the guy.
If you have seen the file, you
Dacă ați văzut
are probably
dosar,
aware that there is some information from customs on this car, of the customs service. Did you see that?
Da.
yes.
The customs service information gives the following information: that the customs value of the car was established in 2019, and that was when the car was imported. It was imported by your friend, and the value was estimated at 270,000 lei. And there were also taxes paid on the car, and that is more or less 40,000 lei. That's different numbers that you give. What is your reaction?
Deci valoarea bunului în vamă
The customs value
sunt cel
of
puțin 6 metode.
there are at least 6 methods that the customs service is establishing the customs value of a good, and
Haideți să spunem că sarcina serviciului
let's say the task of a customs service is to bring as much money as possible into the state treasury.
Serviciul vamal a fost
The
prezentat
customs service was provided
achiziționare
with a
mijlocului de
purchase contract related to that car. I could buy a good at a declared price of 1 leu, but the state will tax me based on the customs value established based on a specific classification that the customs service is following. I know that there are 6 different methods. They can combine them, use them. With respect to customs duties, 40,000, I know I was told that the customs clearance was 50% lower for hybrid cars. That's why I counted it at 24,000. That's what my colleague told me.
I'm going to ask my colleagues if they have any questions on this.
Domnul Gutan, vrem să vă rugăm foarte mult.
Mr. Gutan, we would like to kindly ask you to send us by email, because that's the communication rule, the rule of communication between candidates and commission. Send us those pictures that you showed and other information you deem relevant for your evaluation in relation to this topic. Let's see, are there any other questions from the colleagues regarding the car?
I will move to your housing situation, Mr. Gutan, and I will go through it through the years, and then I'll zoom in on in the changes in the addresses that you had. Between 2011 and 2018, your housing situation has undergone several changes. And we have some questions on this. From what we can see, your first domicile was at F Street, which you bought in 2003, and you lived there until 2011. Is that correct?
It was either 2002 or 2003. That is correct, on the F Street.
Is this house still owned by you? The living space, let me put it like that. Is it still owned by you? Okay.
Da.
Is anyone living there
Yes.
right now?
Nu locuiește nimeni.
Nobody lives there.
Do you remember how much you paid for it and how you financed it?
Well, the price was paid by the parents. Back in 2002, I had just graduated from university. It wasn't me who paid for it, it was the parents. And the price is the one that was set out in the contract. So it is not one, I can't remember actually. So the condition of the apartment also mattered, and on the basis of that, the price was believed to be a fair one. And we was on the same wavelength with the other market prices for such apartments. It wasn't too big or too small a price.
In April 2011, you moved from F Street. By then you had a family. And you moved to a house owned by your brother in C Street. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you have
Yes.
said that is because you and your family urgently needed more living space, and also because your brother's house, who had been empty up till then, had been burgled while it stood empty because of repairs. And you also said you did not have to pay any rent, and that you stayed there till the beginning of 2015. Is that correct?
That is correct.
About the need of more living space, I noticed that your second child was born in April that year, and I think that raised the members of your households to 5. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Count them.
Цей номер, да.
Okay. Like I said before, in 2015, you and your family moved to an apartment at M Boulevard, which was at that time owned by your mother-in-law, because it was a more convenient location, I understand. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. And in addition to that, my wife at that time, after her maternity leave ended, she continued, well, she was working at that time just a few blocks away in that same city area. And it was convenient because the kindergarten was also in that city area where the apartment was. So at that time it was the apartment of the mother-in-law, and so it was all in one place, so to speak. And the real estate, that property that belonged to my brother, that was located in the suburb, and it was a little bit inconvenient when it came to commuting in terms of time and in terms of the distance too. So the children, given that we had to get the children up very early to be able to make it to school or to kindergarten.
Thank you. I will move to the apartments in M Street. In 2011, through a preferential price program organized by the General Prosecutor's Office, you obtained an apartment, and since there's going to be 2 that we were talking about, I will call the first one A, which had the surface of 75 square meters and also a parking space, and you paid for both together approximately 680,000 lei. Is that correct?
Да, este corect.
Yes, this is correct.
Do you remember when you heard about this preferential price program?
The prosecutors, well, there were 2 preferential price programs for prosecutors. Initially, there was the so-called first mortgage, and considering that our family was newly formed, And the apartment that we used to live in at that time responded to the needs of my family. And I think I also didn't have that length of service that I was supposed to have. So I hadn't applied for it, but I also wouldn't have met the criteria, I believe, in order to be granted that housing under the first program, the first mortgage. The second one was announced at some point in 2010, I think, or 2011, when initially an agreement was entered into with a different entrepreneur. But then the contract was terminated because the new one agreed to better terms in terms of the numbers of apartments for prosecutors too. I think that was around 2010, late 2010 or early 2011. I think that's in the application that I filed. That was a public announcement made that was meant for all prosecutors in Chisinau municipality. And I applied, and the commission decided that I was eligible. And in terms of the distribution of the apartment by floor, well, that's what the commission did. It wasn't I. I did not have the possibility to choose specifically the apartment, as in the floor or the block specifically. There were 6 blocks of apartments. And it was up to the commission to distribute, to hand out, so to speak, the apartments. And that I received what I got, what I was given.
I'll come back to that because it's a relevant remark. You have stated that for this apartment A that you have paid 2 installments, one in May and one in October, but that you decided that the apartment was not suitable for your family because of the layout, but also because of the size. And from what I know, you do not have a copy of the contract for that apartment anymore, nor documents for the payments. Is that correct?
That is correct. In terms of the area, I think it was 75 square meters. And, well, we used to live in 34 square meters, so we were making do, though it wasn't very easy to. So the area, the size of the area, that was quite okay. But in terms of the layout, it was T-shaped. There were these long hallways, but the bedrooms, the kitchen were to the sides. So the layout was such that also you couldn't make any changes to that plan, to that layout. We couldn't have had 3 bedrooms. My brother-in-law lived with us too, so he was growing up, and I had 2 daughters, and it was absolutely natural, and it made sense for the girls to sleep in a bedroom of their own, and for my brother-in-law in a bedroom of his own, and have another bedroom for ourselves. So it didn't meet the needs. I don't want to be mean, but the developer of those buildings, I think they focused on have a big size, but ultimately it was not beneficial for the beneficiaries of those apartments.
I understand. When you signed the contract, was there a floor plan attached to it?
There was one, but then the decision on the distribution of the apartment, that did not belong to me. I didn't have the possibility to choose. I didn't have the possibility to go up to the commission and tell them, look, this doesn't meet the needs of my family. So I was eligible for a 2-room apartment. Now, as for the layout and the square meters, it was up to the commission to decide. Now, what the criteria were, that I don't know, and the regulation does not establish this as a separate criterion, as in these people are going to get this layout and those people are going to get the layout. I hope this was not a decision made specifically, but it was just decided by drawing.
We talked about a parking space as well. Was that a separate contract?
No, there wasn't a separate contract. Initially, that was a parking space of 22 square meters, as far as I can remember. A little bit late, the developer thought that it could perhaps get more out of it, and it reduced the sizes of the parking lots to 17 square meters. They've made some changes in the layout, renumbering. So it was a true chaos. To be honest, it was a true chaos in terms of the records keeping of that and the distribution of these lots. I don't want to be mean with the developer, but it's either there was too crowded and too little room for everyone, or was it that the expenses they've incurred were much bigger than they initially thought they would have to spend. But I was supposed to get a 22 square meters parking space, and I got the 17 square meters, and even in a different place compared to what we've initially agreed on.
We talked about the 2 installments that you paid on apartment A. Do you remember how much you paid?
Unfortunately, I don't remember. That was as far back as 2011, and if I hadn't read that contract, so that said that as at the date of this contract transmitting the rights and obligations, the person that is the assignee shall pay the installments. This contract doesn't provide for the amounts, even the contract didn't provide for the amounts to be paid, if I'm not mistaken. So I can't remember it all. So what I have paid, for what I've paid, I have kept that information. I've taken the contract from my colleague and I've shared that with the Commission.
You did. And how did you pay for those 2 installments?
In Moldovan lei, at the cash desk of the developer that was located on Lev Tolstoy Street.
Where was the money? Where did the money come from?
All the money for this apartment I received from my parents. In the year 2011, in April, I think, in April or May, around that time. It was after the second child was born. And that was a contribution of my parents, and I would like to thank them on this occasion.
Okay. I'm going to move to December 6, 2011, when you signed 2 contracts. The first one was transmitting your rights on apartment A to a person with the initials AS. And in this contract, I found the date for your original contract. That was 24th of March in 2011. Just so we know the date. Did you pay AS? Did AS pay you anything for getting this contract from you?
This person with the initials AS has paid me back those amounts that I had paid to the developer of those buildings. And 500 lei, which is what the notary established. That is a fee that you have to pay for contracts like that, for the notarization of contracts like that. It's like the minimum amount. That was the honorary of the notary, in fact. I would like to mention that the contracts were drafted on that same day because I wanted to make sure that I had a roof over my head. And the money that I've spent, that as per the receipts that I've annexed, I put that into the accounting. So I guess that there, the AS person, the one who took over my first contract, I guess those payments were forwarded or put to the account of that that person. The developer did not raise any issue regarding these contract transmitting the rights and obligations. Everything was done with them being aware of that and with a written consent. So there was no confusion whatsoever.
That was my question. My next question, like you knew, was the building company notified that you made this change in the contract?
Niciun contract de cesiune de creanță nu
No such contract could have been signed without the written consent of the representative of the developer, of the builder. And they were always present at the notary, because actually all of these sort of contracts of assignment, there were several of them, several contracts like this. Now, if you pay attention to that, and should we make an analysis, we will see that actually most of the inhabitants of those blocks of apartments are not prosecutors. And the representative, the lawyer working for the developer, was practically always there at the office of the notary. There was one single notary handling all of these contracts like this.
Did you notify the Office of the Prosecutor General?
I did not, because there was no need to. There were actually some letters of recommendation, and the task of the commission that was establishing who was eligible for getting contracts at preferential prices. So the duties of that commission have ended once the apartments were distributed. There were even some letters telling us to pay the installments, reminding one, because many of our colleagues, my colleagues, couldn't afford paying those installments, and it specifically stated that all assignment contracts like that can only be implemented with the agreement of the developer. We needed to have the developer on board, so there was no necessity to inform the Office of the Prosecutor General regarding contracts like this.
Thank you. As you already said, on the same date there was another contract where you, the rights of another apartment, apartment B, which is bigger than A, was transmitted to you by a colleague, which we will call DG. So basically on that day you changed apartments. And you gave as a reason for DJ to get rid of the apartment was that he did not have the financial means to pay the installments. Is that correct?
The reason for that exchange was that we were looking for a layout that would be such as to respond to the needs of my family at that time. And it was even about the floor. I think that was somewhere in the middle. And the view was outwards looking. At the time, nobody knew that in front of the block of apartments, actually, the developer intended to build another block of apartments. So we had no knowledge of it, and that was the situation. And yes, I already had the money that I had received from my parents, and I was able to move forward. I was going to be able to pay the installments in time.
I'm a little bit confused about the parking space, because you kept the parking space, right?
Spațiul de parcare, sincer, nu.
Well, that parking space, I had never seen it. I had never actually seen which one is mine, to be able to say, look, number 35 or number 32, for instance, this is my parking space. The person who was responsible for distributing these parking spaces, parking lots, they would say, well, come over and then we'll figure out right there on the spot. there was no handover, takeover document to formalize this. Only I think as late as 2020, we've concluded some sort of a contract like this, which to state that this is your parking space. It was chaotic. I did not use that parking space. I had not lived there for one day, and there was no outfitting done to the department. But some colleagues who lived there, I allowed them to use that space for free. I did not. There was not a separate contract for a parking space. It was assumed that when I let them have the 75 square meters apartment, so as if the parking space should have gone together with it. When I took over the apartment for the DJ from DJ, that came along with another parking space. That was initially also supposed to be 22 square meters. So initially there was a particular number and a particular position. Then they've made changes and they've reduced the square footage so that more parking spaces were created. And I am not sure I managed to answer your question, but even to this day I still don't understand very well how this distribution of parking spaces even took place.
I think it will stay a mystery. With regard to the transfer of the rights for apartment B that you got from your colleague, did you pay him anything for it?
The 500 lei was included, but I didn't pay it. That was just the price that the notary established for his services, like honorari. I paid nothing at all to my colleague. I paid him nothing. So he had the property initially, and then he has assigned that apartment to me. He gave it over to me, so to speak. I did not pay him anything.
Thank you. You have sent the contract, which was a contract between your colleague and the building company. When he transferred the rights of apartment B to you, was there a new contract made for you and the building company?
A new contract was not signed, just that a contract of transfer of rights and obligations was signed. And to that, we've annexed the contract that was initially signed by the colleague. The colleague had not paid the installments, and as no payment was made, so no other contract was signed, only that contract transferring rights and obligations and the investment contract annexed.
I'm going to ask a question which you have answered before, but I need your answer, is whether you informed the Office of the Prosecutor General about the change in apartments.
I have not informed the Office of the Prosecutor about it because it was not necessary. The contract was entered into as individuals, not as employees of the prosecution service, but it was as individuals with the developer, so there was no need, there was no contractual term, there was no, what should I call it? There was nothing bad for me in not having informed the Office of the Prosecutor General, so I did nothing wrong by not informing it. It didn't say that this was a condition, otherwise the contract would be terminated. This was not a condition for keeping the contract valid.
The reason why I'm asking this is because you could say that you benefited twice from the preferential price, first with apartment A and then with apartment B. What would be your reaction on that?
That I have only benefited once. I've used only one possibility to enter into a contract for a preferential price when I was included on the list by the Commission. Otherwise, well, if we should stick to the same train of thoughts, and we could say that the relatives of the friends of our colleagues who have later become the owners of apartments, or who have also had such transfers of rights and obligations. We could also say that they've had, for instance, they've used preferential prices without being prosecutors. So I've received that one apartment, and that I did what I saw fit with it, and there was no mandatory term in the contract that I entered into with the developer. So there was no term that the apartment has ultimately stay on the prosecutors. Ultimately, there was no such clause that it should ultimately the prosecutors who were on the list of the commission were supposed to be the final ultimate owners. It was some sort of a favor from the institution, not an obligation of ours to stick with that apartment till the end. I hope I made myself understood.
I have one more question about the donation that you received in 2011 from your parents. You have explained that this was an agreement between you and your parents, and it was not put on paper because you are relatives. My question is, did you declare this donation in your asset declaration over that year?
I have not declared it because in 2011, according to the practice in place, you were supposed to declare other legal income, and we do, as subjects of the declaration, when it was other legal income, there was something like a second job that you could have had within that same institution, or some allowances like the childcare allowance. That's what we regard as other legal income, or some other contracts that would have been notarized, for instance. So I haven't declared it. That didn't used to be the practice back then in 2011.
I'm coming back to apartment B. You have stated that there were many technical problems with that apartment, and also, like you said, now there was no view because there was another apartment built across. And you also have stated that the apartment did not have enough rooms to house your family. But if I look at it, I think you had, in the spring 2011, you had 5 family members, and it stayed the same, right?
Da.
Yes. In 2015 or 14, we were still 5. Well, there was enough space, 92 square meters. That is quite a lot of space. But I'm not sure you've ever been to that block of apartments. I'm not sure you've ever seen what the layout was. There was so many instances where you couldn't actually make use of the room, of the space that was available. Now, again, I don't want to be mean with the developer who built those blocks, but the way they built it, they did that in a rush. They've rushed with building those apartments. To this day, I'm a member of that Viber group of people who have those apartments on Belisteo Street. To this day, there are thousands and thousands of problems every time there's some meteo situation. If there's a little bit of flooding, there's rain, then the parking is flooded, for instance, there are power issues. So as I've mentioned, I mean, I don't want to be the kind to complain, but the quality of the construction works was not good. And I knew that I had something to compare it with. And I saw that the price, and considering what the price might have been a little bit smaller compared to what my mother-in-law bought, but the quality of my mother's apartment was much better.
I understand, and we will get there as well, but this is what's on my mind. In 2011, you bought the second apartment, apartment B. You knew the floor plan, you knew how much meters it was, and you're saying that apartment was not suitable for us. So why did you buy it?
Deci noi vorbim de anul 2011.
We're talking about 2011.
Da, în 2011
Yes, I purchased in 2011. If you mean the apartment
soția mea l-a primit
that my wife received as a donation from the mother-in-law, she purchased it in 2014 when I did not know that she had the intention to invest in real estate.
Eu nu am spus că el
I did not say that
pretabil pentru familia mea.
it altogether wasn't good for my family, but when I saw it in 2015 for the first and last time, I realized that the expenses to furnish it and to
De fapt, de schimb de geamuri, de
generally replacing windows, because it was
apa pentru deanul,
raining, well,
geamuri.
when it was raining outside, water was going into the apartment from beneath the windows, so the mechanisms were not closing well. So all expenses that would have been required to replace, repair, finish everything in the apartment would have been substantial. That's what I'm saying.
Mi-aș fi dorit ca
I
calitate și mai
would have liked it to be of a high quality
mai mult suflet pus că de
and for the developer to put more soul into it.
So according to you and what you're telling me right now, you decided that the apartment was not suitable for you. So in the end, no one lived in that apartment when you were the owner. No repairs have been made after you received the apartment, and the apartment was never used from when it was finished until you sold it in 2018. Is that correct? Do you have documentation on the technical problems with the apartment, or do you have correspondence with the building company to solve the problems?
Deci, ca să clarific, dacă
To clarify, well, in 2015 or 14, my mother-in-law wouldn't have purchased her apartment.
eu cu familia mea aveam să locuim
My family and I would be living in the apartment purchased at a preferential price. We would have repaired it, live there, because we had no alternative.
nu am dus corespondență pentru că la data
I did not have correspondence because on the date I
15 sau 2006
accepted the apartment, that was 2015 or 2016,
era cumva înțelegerea
we had that understanding of exchange with my mother-in-law.
nu am văzut sens.
That's why I didn't see the reason to do it. Then I saw the experience of other colleagues who did correspond with the construction company, and that wasn't
De succes sau
a successful one or a productive one.
So in 2018, you did sell the apartment, but you kept this parking space, which you sold later, 2 years later. Is that correct?
în 2018
In 2018, when the apartment was sold, the buyer was offered to buy the parking as well, and because and even though the lady said she had a car, she didn't choose that option. Therefore, I was in that situation that I had to sell the apartment only.
Can you tell us how you sold the apartment? Did you use a real estate agent, or did you place advertisements?
apartamentul s-a vândut
The apartment was sold. I put the message across my colleagues if someone wanted it, because my mother-in-law needed some money rather urgently. And from what I remember, I did not publish any ads. I just informed colleagues that were already living there, doing repair works. Maybe there was a handwritten ad at the entrance to the building.
din câte mi-aduc
So from what I remember, I did not publish any advertising on specialized websites.
What was the price you were asking?
А вони в дирекамі
Given that I explained to the commission that actually it was an exchange and the apartment was supposed to be used when my mother-in-law would have wanted. So ultimately, after the donation contract and after our actual movement to live in the donated property, she became the beneficial owner. I explained to the commission what was the rationale why we decided not to draw up a notary contract, because that would have meant additional expenses. And given it were personal needs and she needed money more urgently, I just said, this is how much I paid. Is that okay for you? I just wanted to recover the money that I paid. This is what I did. And you may have seen that money was transferred to her abroad. I did not keep it. And my family did not use that money.
I think you are aware from our questions, but also from the file, that we did an appraisal of the apartments, which is a lot higher, let me put it like that, than where you... What's your reaction to that?
I agree with the estimate of average market value, but if we make a calculation of a price provided by the real estate agency contracted to do this, it shows an average price of 730 euros, which was not real for that period. To have a price of 730 euros, that would be an average price for the entire Centru sector, but not for each individual real estate building. I explained the commission that it wasn't a transaction meant to earn profit. It was a transaction meant to recover the investment because it was caused by personal needs of the beneficiary, of the beneficial owner. That's it. I mentioned that when we establish the value of real estate, I think the most correct, it would be to look at the supply of apartments for sale in the same district or in the same area. I mentioned that when the developer contracted subcontractors, he paid them using dwelling, like paid them using apartments from it. So you could find offers on the market where the sale price was smaller, like 10, 20%. Not percent, 10, 20, 25 euros than the preferential price that was offered to us. It was a situation where the supply was high. That was it. So it was a transaction to recover investment, not to earn profit.
Thank you. You gave two reasons in your written answers to our questions why the price was so low. You mentioned that the apartment was badly built and had technical problems. Also, you mentioned that the view had been, let me say, spoiled. But you also said that given that all buyers knew that it was an apartment complex where prosecutors had purchased it for a preferential price, the selling price could not be much above it, let me put it like that. And I do not understand that reasoning. Why would the fact that an apartment had originally been available at a preferential price, but then enters the free market, why would that preferential price play a role?
Pentru că
Because
cererea, de fapt, cererea ofertă
the demand
să obții
determines the supply, and depending on how much how quickly you want to obtain, determines the transaction. When you have time, when you have the possibility, you can play with the price and try to hold it higher,
pui condițiile care
or you can set the conditions that are needed to you. Once more, I'm telling you that my mother-in-law was a beneficial owner. She decided she needed the money.
apartamentul s-a
The apartment was sold at the price that she agreed on, not less than what was invested. Money was transferred to her. I don't know how else to explain this, to explain it in another way, but this was the situation.
și plus raționament
Moreover, the rationale I mentioned earlier, there was
expuse spre vânzare decât, cred că, cumpărători.
bigger supply of apartments for sale there than real buyers of apartments. And we are talking about a building complex where, even though apartments officially were put into operation, but a lot of repair works were happening, and the parking spaces were provided only in 2020. So that you can understand how exemplary they were in fulfilling their contractual obligations.
You say, and you said before, that your mother-in-law was the beneficial owner of M Street, but everything was still in your name. So I think you were the only one who could sell it. Am I right?
Este corect.
That's right.
În momentul în care în 2016
In 2016, I think she made the donation in the name of her daughter, not on my name as well. It was only in her daughter's name. By the way, I have a very good mother-in-law, and I have a great relationship with her.
s-a convenit pentru a
But it was agreed that there are expenses related to purchase and sale,
care este sensul dacă toți
and
au convenit că
what would be the meaning to do it? Because the entire family agreed that we exchange, this is your apartment, when you want, we sell it, or when you want to come back home, you come and we will repair it. So we didn't see
nicio nevoie de
any reason or any need to proceed in a different way.
Was this exchange of the apartment on M Street with the apartment on M Boulevard, was it put in writing?
nu a fost consemnat.
No, it wasn't put in writing because it was an exchange of apartments between close relatives who trust each other and who have very good relationships. So no, we didn't feel the need to record an official transaction.
For me, it's not really clear why the apartment on M Street was in your name, stayed in your name, although you had exchanged apartments for another 2 years. It was empty and it was sold in 2018. What was the reason to wait this long?
Motivul a fost că
The reason was the one I mentioned.
beneficiarul efectiv
The beneficial owner, my mother-in-law,
a decis atunci că
decided then that she needed money for personal needs.
i-ar fi putut
She could have kept it. The idea was that when she comes back, should have her housing. But it's 2024 today, and she hasn't come back home. That's why at some point she decided to sell it. And she left the country in 1998, for you to understand.
We've discussed a whole lot of houses and apartments here, but if I boil it down, this is what happened. Your parents funded the purchase of apartment A, and then you switched it to B, but you still use the money of your parents. It was same money, right? Then you switched apartment B with the apartment on M Boulevard, which was belonged to your mother-in-law. So, and this apartment, it's a whole chain of events, was donated to your wife. You are not mentioned anywhere in the donation contract as a beneficiary. And when the apartment B was sold, the money went to your mother-in-law. We saw that. Now, as a result, neither you nor your parents have any legal claim over the apartment which was financed by your parents.
Are you speaking in case of divorce? What happens to me? What do I get? If may God help us, but hopefully that won't happen. It doesn't matter how many co-owners that apartment has. It would still belong to my wife and children if something happens. My father has passed away in the meanwhile. The relationship between my wife and my mother are very good. They are like mother-daughter relationship. I have never asked myself that. I think this is private, you know, thinking about, but really, I don't see a problem here. I can tell you that actually the donation of a mother-in-law, we obtained a much better real estate in terms of the area, location, technical condition at the time it was donated to us. So I am grateful to her because she's making an effort, well, because I made effort sometime for some family members. That's it.
Thank you. We're going to close this off, and then we have only 2 more topics, so I'm asking my colleagues if they have any questions.
Eu aș vrea o întrebare de clarificare.
I have a clarification question. You mentioned that when you applied to the preferential price program for prosecutors, you needed an improvement of a living space in terms of number of rooms because your brother-in-law, who was growing up, those were the words you used, he was living with you. So could you please clarify, was he a dependent of yours? Did you declare him as a family member in your declarations of assets and personal interests? Because including him into family members influenced the area of the apartment you received subsequently, or the decision made about the apartment you got under this program. Thank you for your question. When I filed the application to the Prosecutor General's office to be included into the list of prosecutors to obtain apartments at preferential prices, I did not include him. Because, well, I did not include him. No, I did not. I cannot say that he was 100% my dependent because my mother-in-law was involved transferring certain money to support him or just parcels. He was a family member. We did not have any trusteeship or guardianship over the boy in order to be able to include him into the list of my official dependents. If I had that, maybe if I included him, we could have gotten a greater apartment, but I did not think about that then. I only included my children. Well, I had one child and the second was born in April. Thank you. One more question about, again, the preferential price apartments. Do you know in those buildings where housing was provided for prosecutors, were there apartments sold by the developer sold on the free market? And maybe you know what was the difference between the preferential price and the commercial price.
La sigur au fost o anumită
Certainly,
suprafață de
a certain
spațiu construit
part of the building belonged to the developer, and the developer sold that, but I don't remember what was the price. I don't know. I know from personal interaction with certain subcontractors that were performing works there that they were actually selling at a price lower than the price we got. I know that for sure. But what was the price that the developer sold it on the free market, I don't know, but I don't think it was much bigger than the price we got. Thank you. Let's see if colleagues have any more questions about this chain of apartments. If not, you can go on, Saskia.
Last topic is the apartment in Romania. In the written round, the Commission has asked you twice if you or your relatives had any property or a right to a property in Romania. Both times you have said no. One of the bank accounts of your wife showed that she had made 2 payments to a construction company in Romania on March 20 and 29 of this year. And you were asked what the source of funds for these payments was, and you have declared that 20,000 euros was the selling of the Toyota Camry, 4,450 euro was a private loan, we will get back to it, and then there was savings from your wife. Is that correct?
Yes, with just a comment. When I filled out the questionnaires, the period you asked information about and for which I confirmed that I did not have and I did not contract any real estate in Romania was until 2023. While the preliminary contract, the preliminary sale contract was drawn up in March 2024. So on the day I filled out the tables, the situation was exactly as when I filled them out, I didn't even know, but in 2024 I would get the possibility to sign a preliminary contract. With respect to the source of funds, as you mentioned, as you said, 22,000 euros was money from selling the car. 12,508 euros were personal savings, and the remainder is a loan from an individual. I provided you a copy of the contract for the Commission. I sent it.
Okay. So you thought it was not included in the period that we were asking information for, and that's why you did not mention the apartment. Yes?
Correct. On the date I filled out the tables, you were asking information for year 2023. That's when I filled out the table. It was not requested for 2024. When the Commission asked about it, I immediately provided all the requested information.
On March 12th of this year, you submitted your annual asset declaration. Did you declare the contract for the apartment in Romania, which was a week before, and the debt to the building company in Romania in your asset declaration?
No, because they are going to be reflected in the declaration for 2024. I don't own any property so far. It is a preliminary sale contract which is going to come into force when the right of ownership of a property is put into operation. And I think, I don't know on what date I signed the contract. I have too many documents here.
March 4th.
dar data
But the date of signing, at the end, I think it was different. Was it 13? Because
încheiat, dar e data efectivă.
that was the date when it was concluded. But the date of signing, I don't remember. I don't have it right now.
Tranzacția urmează
But I am supposed to declare this transaction when I file the declaration for 2024, and it will surely be there.
Okay. Just have a few questions, because one of the sources of funds for this contract, and I think you paid most of the purchase price of the apartment right now, was a loan that you received from IR, and he is the friend who sold you the car. You have explained your relationship to him. Why did you loan money from him?
Pentru că dacă
Because
pentru că el de fapt avea disponibil
he actually had available cash at that time.
apelat și la
I also asked closer relatives who were saying that money was in bank accounts, in deposits, and they would lose their interest.
dumnealui avea disponibil
He had available funds. I asked, he brought the money to me, and I transferred it.
And how were you going to repay the loan?
deci din împrumutul total care era
From the total loan, 60,000,
efectiv s-au achitat
we paid 45,000. And I already reimbursed the 15,000, the remainder, and there is a receipt that he got that money. For the rest of the money, the 15,000 that I reimbursed, I went to there is a commercial bank, and I contracted a credit with a monthly rate that allows me to pay it without feeling it as too inconvenient for my family.
pentru zona în care se află imobilul
For the region where the real estate is located, given that works were supposed to be finished in June, but I think it will be put into operation in either at the end of this year or early next year. And rental price vary between 500 and 600 euros, given where it is located, the condition, and the availability of a parking space underground parking space. And it makes this investment self-sustainable, because the money I will get from rent, I will be able to cover the bank loan, and a little bit will be left. When it comes to reimbursing the loan to the individual, as you know from the declarations I filed, my family has two real estate, the apartment that I purchased in 2002, which needs some repairs, given that no repair works were done there since purchase, and it will be prepared for sale because, but not right now, because the condition it currently has will decrease the market price. And I also have a land plot in the suburbs of Chișinău, in a good area, quite good area right now, and I purchased it in 2009. Its market price grew substantially ever since. Also, given that the land code was amended in the meanwhile, and I think that area is now included into the built-up area of Chișinău municipality. So I agreed with my friend that in the spring of 2025, I will either, by the time, repair that apartment and sell it and give him the money, or I will transfer him the ownership right over that land plot in the suburbs. It is very well, it is like this. He knows my financial situation. He knows the property that I own. So I was open. He knows where it is located because he owns other real estates in that suburb. So he knows the worth of it. That's it.
So I understand from your words that the apartment in Romania was bought as an investment. You were going to rent it out.
Deci, apartamentul este cumpărat
That apartment was bought as an investment, and it was bought for, so to speak, a safety purpose, given the regional climate and everything that is going on in the neighboring country. That apartment was also bought for the sake of making an investment, because I think that within a year I will have one of my children will be a student, and that child will go abroad to pursue further education, and Romania is one of the viable options on the table for that. So there are very practical, there's a very practical rationale, and safety was also one of the considerations given what is going on in the region.
Thank you. You have answered my questions, and I'm going to leave it to the colleagues if they have any additional questions.
Da, stimați colegi, dacă mai sunt întrebări.
Now, dear colleagues, if there are any additional questions regarding this subject that we just addressed, the last one. Chairman, if you have any questions, we are a little bit perhaps running late, or maybe we're not in the same immediate time with you, and we might not always get the chance to, if you have a question.
I don't have any additional questions, and I'm just going to wait a minute to see if the other colleagues want to jump in. I'm looking, and it seems like there are no further questions from anyone on the commission. Mr. Gutan, therefore, at this point, I'd like to give you the opportunity to make a closing statement to the commission.
mulțumim, domnul președinte.
Thank you, Chairman.
Nu rămâne decât să urez la toți succes și
All I want to do is to wish everyone success and have a lot of patience. This is not an easy thing to do. It was not easy for me as a subject. This evaluation, I think it was even harder for my family. It is actually something that put to test our family cohesion, so to speak, the extended family included and friends included, actually. So that's all. I wish everyone the best of luck, and that's all.
Well, Mr. Gutan, we thank you for your participation in the evaluation process today and at this hearing. The commission will now deliberate on the matter and issue our decision in due course, and so I will declare the hearing to be closed. Thank you.